The Hong Kong of old is gone. China is doing its best to crush the last gasps of the pro-democracy movement. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. It's been 5 years since the massive anti-CCP protests of Hong Kong in 2019. We were there for that, and now I know what tear gas tastes like. What the CCP has done to Hong Kong is terrible. This month, 14 pro-democracy Hong Kong activists were convicted under the city's controversial new so-called national security law. These activists were among the famous Hong Kong 47, activists and lawmakers who were charged with conspiracy to commit subversion 3 years ago for holding primaries. Yes, primaries. Of course, what they were found guilty of was subversion and undertaking a vicious plot to undermine local authorities and state power by holding primaries. The sentencing is the largest use yet of the suppression law, national security law. Among the convicted are former lawmakers Leung Kwok-hun, Lam Chuk-ting, Raymond Chan, and Helena Wong, who are all found guilty of conspiracy to commit subversion and could face life in prison. I actually interviewed Leung Kwok-hun a few years back. Truly a wild and dangerous man. I'll leave a link below to that. Now, this is what everyone feared would happen way back in 1984, when the British agreed to hand Hong Kong over to China. Beijing agreed that for 50 years from taking control in 1997, there would be a one country, two systems rule when it came to Hong Kong. Hong Kong's lifestyle, capitalist system, and administration were to remain unchanged until 2047. Well, it's only 2024, and boy, how things have changed. You see, the agreement between Hong Kong and mainland China was fleshed out in the Hong Kong Basic Law. It laid out Hong Kong's relationship with mainland China and what powers and rights the Hong Kong government and people had. But surprise, surprise, the Basic Law was basically just a Trojan horse for the CCP. The Basic Law mandated that Hong Kong pass a national security law. Attempts to do so in 2003 and 2012 failed after being met with big protests over concerns that it would tighten the CCP's grip on the city. So the CCP tried to slowly erode the rights it promised to Hong Kong. But in 2019, a particularly corrupt Hong Kong chief executive, Carrie Lam, tried to push forward an extradition law that would have meant people in Hong Kong could be tried in mainland Chinese courts that have a 99.9% conviction rate. Hong Kongers had enough. Massive anti-CCP protests erupted. So Beijing dispensed with the pretenses of a slow and steady pressure campaign, and after purging pro-democracy lawmakers, just forced the national security law in Hong Kong in 2020. Then, just this year, the new and improved pro-CCP Hong Kong government passed Article 23, which is basically the same thing, but it wasn't forced on Hong Kong by the CCP. It changed Hong Kong. The national security law tackles sedition, treason, spying, and possessing state secrets. And if you're thinking, that's all pretty vague, can we get some specifics? No. And shut up. It's been called a human rights emergency. It gives greater powers to law enforcement in Hong Kong to search properties, freeze or confiscate assets, and seize journalistic materials. It also greatly expanded a crackdown on contact with the world outside of China, including social media posts, interviews with foreign media outlets, or contact with foreign diplomats. The results? Raids on pro-democracy media outlets like Apple Daily, which was shut down. Now that wasn't bad enough. Even keeping old copies of Apple Daily can get you charged with sedition. Now, other media outlets are leaving Hong Kong. That includes the US-funded Radio Free Asia, which, appropriately by leaving, is making the continent one step closer to a radio-free Asia. Bei Feng, RFA's president, said that though RFA is retaining its official media registration, full-time staff are no longer working there since actions by Hong Kong authorities, including referring to RFA as a foreign force, raise serious questions about our ability to operate in safety with the enactment of the security law. Independent bookstores are also self-censoring. Yes, even bookstores can't be independent. I guess the CCP loves chains. No, not those kind. An independent bookstore owner said it took about 30 books off the shelves, fearing it might be accused of distributing seditious publications. The titles were about the 2019 protests, Tibet and Xinjiang, all potentially sensitive topics in mainland China. The books will be trashed. This is killing Hong Kong. From January through mid-August of last year, 291,000 people left Hong Kong, which is the highest level since record-keeping began in 2021. And since 2020, over 500,000 Hong Kongers have departed. Hong Kong only has 7 million people. This is contributing to a massive brain drain in what was once one of the world's foremost economic hubs. Young professionals are fleeing the city in droves, often ending up in places like the UK, Taiwan, Canada, and Australia. Forget Disneyland, the world's biggest tourist attraction is freedom. Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee reported that between 2020 and 2022, the labor force shrank by 140,000. And when they go, they take their money with them. Bank of America projected in 2021 the capital flight from Hong Kong could reach nearly $76 billion by 2025. This could actually lead to the extinction of Hong Kong. Hong Kong's fertility rate is 0.8 births per woman. It's the world's lowest, which is crazy considering how often I talk about everyone in China getting constantly screwed. So, the Hong Kong government is trying to replace Hong Kongers with mainland Chinese. For them, the city is still freer than the mainland. But even so, this still doesn't always work out so well. Highly trained local doctors have been leaving the city, and medical professionals from the mainland without the same degree of training can't fill their void. And then there are the language and cultural barriers as well.
有啲住戶搬入嚟嘅，會見到一啲可能應該係新移民嘅家庭，或者係家庭入邊聽到佢哋講啲廣東話都唔係好純正嘅一啲家庭。咁亦都有部分其實啲行為都令我哋有啲困擾嘅，例如咁佢哋就唔綁個膠袋就咁抌喺個垃圾桶外邊咁。
Hong Kong's economy is obviously suffering from all this too. Since 2019, the Hang Seng Index has fallen by over 40%, which means that rival financial hubs like Tokyo and Mumbai are able to leapfrog right over. Hong Kong had just 12 initial public offerings in the first quarter of this year, the worst performance since the Great Recession era of 2009. Now, Hong Kong's trade with Russia, the Middle East, and some Southeast Asian countries is increasing, but that's leading to a conclusion that it's being diminished from a global financial hub to an Asian one, or a potential hub for dirty money. Hong Kong's stock market is now lower than it was when the British handed it over to China in 1997. So if what the CCP did to Hong Kong is sounding great to you, there might be somewhere else in line for the one country, two systems model.
Good evening from Hong Kong, China. In fact, China's bosses, who now have Hong Kong back, named a new target today, Taiwan. They say Taiwan could be like Hong Kong, live under Chinese rule and still have some freedom.
Oh yes, I'm sure Taiwan could be just like Hong Kong. But you might be wondering, is there anything you can do to support Hong Kong in their fight for freedom? Well, I actually have a pretty big project on the horizon that will do just that, so stay tuned. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.